welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Oba. So glad to have you with us. AI, some love it, others loathe it, but just like Brussels sprouts and lanternflies, it's not going away anytime soon. So, in the first of a two-part conversation, we ask, is AI really the bad guy? Michael Kirsanov of Truly.dev joins us in a few seconds to answer that question and much more. And joining me now is Michael Kirsanov of Truly.dev. Michael, welcome to the show. It is great to have you on our program. And let's go ahead and get started, all right? Because, Michael, you're in this space of AI. I met you at the Video Consortium conference in New York back in February. We'll talk more about that in just a second because I thought it was fascinating your presence over there among so many in the film, content creation, journalism space. So I'll get to more about that in a second. But thinking about AI, one of the things we were talking before doing this is that I look at AI in the way that search engines have been in the 90s and all. And I wanted to read off a piece that you had over in Cellular Thinking to kind of tee off this conversation here. It says here, quote, we're going to be living, you offered the prediction here, quote, we're going to be living in an era where human existential dread will reach unprecedented levels. For hundreds of thousands of years of existence and evolution and societal development, our brains have been wired in scarcity and survival. We are hardened to find subconscious threats in everything we see and feel. With AI, we're going to see capabilities that will threaten our identities, our very identities, to the bone. Pretty dark, Michael, I would say, huh? What
It's
do you mean by all of this?
so it's a fascinating thing. Early in the article, I open up so I always describe myself as a pragmatic optimist, right? I take a very strong stance against pessimism and defeatism and everything else explicitly. The reason I mention that and the reason I go with that specific train of thought and approach is everyone has had some kind of life journey, some kind of character development, rooted in something rooted in their own capability, their own self-development that makes them them. Uh, what what I see happening in AI and what I understand from it is that a lot of the capabilities and qualities that we can exhibit as humans can now suddenly be replicated en masse. And these capabilities are only growing day by day. So, 3 years ago, a large language model could put out a piece of work and people would criticize it. It's like, oh, it's really not the best. Now we have AI generated media everywhere and people are really enjoying it. And a lot of people can't really seem to distinguish the difference. And if you were to put writers in front of it, if you were to put media producers in front of it, even in my own field, and part of what I do is software engineering, AI can do software engineering a lot more rigorously and idiomatically than I can, right? Which means now me personally as an individual, I have a large reconciliation of my own identity. And a lot of that was based in, well, before I had to I had to teach myself to do good software engineering. But now if I was thinking about this from a closed-minded pessimistic standpoint, be like some machine is coming in and copying everything that I'm doing wholesale. And now I'm like, what is my life worth? What have I done? And that sort of large train of thought, that sort of line of thinking is what I think a lot of people are going to run into in one incarnation or another. And that's where I think we are going to enter an era where we will have to redefine and find our own purpose as humans. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to coexist with others? What does it mean to see each other as human, not just as a means to an end, but rather as ends to themselves, that I can appreciate the people in the room with me just for being them, not for what they can give me or what resource they could possibly afford me. That was the thought process and mental model 10,000 years ago, even today. But I don't think it's going to be that way. Post in an era of post scarcity AI, and I don't know when that might happen. It could be 5 years from now, it could be 20, 50 years from now, but eventually it will happen in my mind's eye.
So you think that the AI is going to actually be a way to help draw us closer to each other?
Right.
Because I look at sometimes what goes on, especially when we go to a lot of these events and networking and all that. It's sometimes it's kind of like very transactional.
Yep.
So, do you think that that transactional stuff will be reduced by the AI? And then it's kind of like what do people get right about AI and what do people get wrong about it?
Right. Right. I think what a lot of people get, well, I like to start with the bad news first. What do people get wrong about it? Um, I think when a lot of people say like AI can't be creative or AI can't produce creative outputs, I like to redirect it a little bit, the train of thought there, because um, I think that creativity. So I think of myself, even though I'm technically inclined, I think of myself as a very creative person because I have to think in many different lateral ways. I pull in thoughts, and I pull in thoughts and methodologies from many different disciplines, and inspirations. And a lot of what I find from creativity is um, it's looking at either old or new information in ways that we haven't thought about before. So it's like if I look at a piece of architecture and I'm inspired by it, an AI could very well say, well, if this architecture was tweaked slightly this way, what could happen from it? That might not have not consciously occurred to me, but now it can give me an idea and say, wait, that's an interesting thought process. Let's explore that deeper.
Mm.
So it can seed the thought and it can seed creativity, because it lets you see a few different avenues and approaches to it. So the creativity angle, I think, is what a lot of people tend to get wrong with it. And it's like AI will never have an original thought. But it's kind of like the same as like a drunk person wandering around can spew everything they want. And it's like you might hear something, and it's like, I never thought about it that way. Even though they're drunk, even though they're stumbling around, it's like fascinating. I don't know the validity of it, but fascinating. So that's the thought process there. For what people get right about I think, and this is where I'll speak on this in two parts. Is one, uh, its capabilities are growing, and we don't know how far those capabilities will go. I don't think our mental models right now as humans are adequately prepared to say it's like this is what it can do and that's it. I don't think AI is a category of technology that can be limited in that nature. Uh, kind of like a you can't really describe like the limits of a human brain or what we can do or what we can think of or what we can invent. You can describe it in like biological terms, like we have 100 billion neurons, and that's the most we'll ever have. But with AI, when you have so many machine neurons and you can just print more ad infinitum, there's really no, I don't see a finite limit to what could be potentially done. And I don't think and speaking on the second part, when it comes to well, AI is going to come for everyone's jobs and everything else. That's a really really hot topic, and I think this is where people get it right. Is like uh, it's not going to wholesale. Um, it's one. I think yes, it will come for people's like present defined categories of work. But in the same way that the Industrial Revolution changed categories of work and shifted things into different categories.
So yeah, so I
Yeah,
mean, just real quick, Michael, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's one of those things, right, where you just think it's an evolution. It's a natural evolution, not so much that it's intentional that AI is going to steal jobs or whatever. That it's just kind of sort of the really kind of sort of the natural order, isn't it?
Right, right. Like I'm going to give, I'm actually going to give I want to give actually, I'll do a practical example, right? I'll do a practical example right now. I think just sent a
Yeah,
request to
here,
share my
let me
screen for a moment.
let's do this here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to just briefly share my desktop. Let's see if I can take a look here. Awesome. Going to share that specific application. Do you see my screen? Do you see
I
my
do,
application
yeah,
here? Awesome.
yeah.
So I'm going to, Eugene, when I introduce myself at Video Consortium, you know that I'm not necessarily a director, filmmaker, writer, anything of the nature, traditionally speaking. But it's like, for example, if I this is a design program called Pencil.dev. It's free. It's what I use for like developing software and everything else. But essentially, if I want to like essentially design me a storyboard for let's see this is where it's like you still have to enter in the raw creative process, but it's like if I want to say design me a storyboard for an outdoor documentary detailing the adverse effects of acid rain and the first inception of citizen science as a term. So what I'm gonna do is I just entered that in, and naturally it's like, okay, I need to lay out a story. I need to architect this. If I was a creative director, right,
Mhm.
how would I even begin like laying out this narrative and everything else? But what's fascinating is so I'll have right now there's an AI that's actually working right now on the fly. It's going to actually create an actual storyboard scene for me immediately, like here on the fly. It's going to work in parallel to do it. It's going to build scenes. It's going to describe them for me. Actually, if I zoom out a little bit here, I don't because it's working here directly, and it's like this is creating like here we are.
Mm.
So it's actually going to create like it's actually going to create like a narrative for me that if I was so inclined, I could theoretically translate this into saying how would I tell a story about this? How would I turn this into something that could be potentially produced? So on and so forth. And what's really fascinating is, like I described before, I'm not necessarily someone that like is traditionally like a director, filmmaker, writer, or self-described as like a storyteller. But now that I have like this like these tools that can help me like articulate this better, I have that capability as a human now, even if it's not necessarily on par with everyone else. I'm able to bring myself up to speed there. So it breaks down a lot of barriers in who is able to do things and how they're able to contribute to a certain field. So
Oh,
that's
absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
hey, which is really neat because I think and I'm glad you mentioned Video Consortium because that was really, Future of Nonfiction Video, such a great conference there. And we talk about having the human in the creative process. And what you just demonstrated, Michael, for our audience is, you still have to have that input in
right.
there and that sort of thing, which is fascinating. I mean, along those same lines, when you talked to people at the conference and you approach them with the fact that you're an AI, that sort of thing, I mean, what was that like? Because as you said, you're not a traditional creator as in terms of like content or things of that nature. But you're doing it just in a different way. And
Right.
what was that reaction like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So one, I think, it was my first time ever at any sort of filmmaking, journalistic event, or anywhere where writers, journalists, documentary makers were there. So I had this idea in my own mind. It's like, am I going to be seen like if I start having a conversation with someone for 5 minutes, and then I bring up like 5, 10 minutes into the conversation, like I'm an AI guy, will a person feel betrayed because they're talking to me so passionately, and now it's like, oh, I'm here, I'm actually the bad guy, right? So
Yeah,
I want,
we
so
were
I
like,
want,
yeah, we
yeah.
were like, is AI the bad guy in the room?
Right, right. So I decided to open with that right away, just to like usually in conversations, like everyone's asked, so what do you do and everything else. So I decided to go like rip a band-aid off and say it's like, okay, I'm this guy here, but and then I explained my rationale there. So essentially, my rationale that I described to people and I described to you was even though like I may be like an AI engineer, software engineer, I build products, etc. I still have a story to tell. I still have to articulate narrative. I still have to find a way to get in front of, captivate an audience, be able to have a coherent narrative, a cohesive narrative, and be able to tell my story just as everyone else in the room was trying to tell their story. What's really fascinating is the reactions from people. A lot of them were more so curious than anything. It wasn't to like there was no conversation I had like immediately started off as like vehement, like, oh no, you're bad or anything. It was actually there was a couple people that like you'd get raised eyebrows, but after talking with them, it was evident like uh, I find that a lot of people's dislike for AI, and I asked them, it's like, have you ever used it? Have you ever, what are you, like, I asked them about their usage, if they've used it before, do they use it in their workspace? What I find interesting is, uh, a lot of, there's a few people that they disliked it by virtue of their workplace or their place of employment, enforced them to use it, or they used it in a way that they didn't really, enjoy. Like, one particular individual, I spoke with them, and they were using AI to generate images for their marketing media, but they didn't really like the images. They thought they could do it better, but so they modified like the image prompts themselves. So it's like I think uh, the uh, the the perception of choice in how
Hmm.
AI is presented to people. I also heard from people's like, well, Google started putting all these AI generated recommendations in, and I really hate it. And trust me,
Hmm.
I hate them too. That's like that's
So
just
you're not a fan of Gemini.
I like Gemini as a model. How it gets rolled out to people can sometimes the models themselves, I think, are good, but how they get used and implemented, where they get implemented, is where a lot of controversy can happen. Like Google having AI generated responses, I heard a lot of people complaining about. I heard, I think, 4 people or so complaining like specifically on those two, which was fascinating, but also tells me a lot about like if it wasn't Google rolling it out, if maybe they discovered it in a organic manner, kind of like or like I just described with pencil.dev, like something of that nature is like, would that opinion change? So yeah, it was fascinating, but overall, my experience at the conference was one more of curiosity and one more of people trying to ask me about like AI, similar questions as you're asking. It's like, what do you think is going to happen, and me describing my thoughts. And yeah, it was a great time to it was a great bridging experience, I think, between industries because for me, and I think this happens with every industry, but I think when you have people from one industry all in one room and you have people from another industry all in one room, kind of like you have a room full of software engineers or you have a room full of documentary makers, journalists, etc., and no one really ever talks to each other, everyone this is human nature. It's like we get ideas of who our neighbors are, and we get this mental image of like, oh, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Do they have our best intents in mind? And so on and so forth. It's so just really getting down on the ground floor and talking with people helped just helped one, I think, bring a lot of good energy into like people figuring things out and discovering it for themselves and seeing how they really think and feel about it. But also helped me understand it's like what is the narrative right now that is not inside like the whole software bubble. So it was a really good experience.
And most certainly, I think it was. I think it was really amazing, and I really think that bridging the divide, I think in a lot of industry, I think is worthwhile because I think ultimately it helps everybody. Because the reality is, and I know that there's always going to be some opposition, to the AI and everything else. We had a few friends of mine over at University of Maryland who are vehemently opposed to AI, but I think that again, the bridging those divides does help because the reality is that AI, this is not going away. It's just like when, as we mentioned earlier in the program, when Google and everything else, Yahoo came out in the mid 90s. I mean, that stuff is not going away. I mean, you think about back in the day when you had to search for stuff, you had to look for encyclopedias, you have to go for the card catalog, and so on and so forth. Um, so the reality is, how do we adapt? I guess, and how do we make? I guess what do you think, Michael, in terms of the user friendliness of some of this? Does that need to improve, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or some of the others? Maybe, I guess, for some of the guys that didn't like the pictures that the AI generated or whatever, how far along are we, do you think, in terms of maybe perhaps some of the improvements there to make this stuff even more readily accepted for a lot of folks that maybe weren't satisfied with some of the stuff? You'll hear that answer and much more from Michael on the May edition of Fit to Speak on the 27th, so I hope you'll be able to join us then. Now, since last month's edition of the program, I'd be remiss if we didn't point out the fact that sadly, layoffs in the media industry continue to be a constant, most notably at CBS, with CBS News Radio shutting down after a century. It's a sad state of affairs for the network, which also carries over to its entertainment division, as in a little over 3 weeks, Stephen Colbert and his late night show will be replaced by Allen Media Group CEO Byron Allen and his show. Unlike Colbert, Allen actually owns his output so much so that he is actually doing a time buy on CBS. I've seen Comics Unleashed, and while I will not accuse Byron Allen of taking any real risks when it comes to comedy, be it his comedy or the comedy that's done on the program, I do find the show to be a bit formulaic and kind of sort of the comedic equivalent of a Toyota Camry with a rear spoiler. What I can say is that even with the plain chicken wing type of comedy that seems to not ruffle the feathers of the powers that be over at Paramount and certainly seems to tickle their fancy, it is nice to know that those guys cannot cluck with Byron Allen's output. Well, throw the knee slapper on that one right there, didn't I? Well, in this era of new media, gatekeepers need not apply. You can't fire Byron Allen. And that is a very, very good thing indeed. Thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. And do join us on csemedia.substack.com, our Substack page, so that you can support all of the work that we do here. Until next time, I'm Eugene Oba, and remember, we will not be silenced.